The emerald gown shimmered across millions of screens, and within seconds, the internet detonated. Meghan Markle had just dropped the trailer for her Netflix holiday special, with Love Meghan dripping in festive cheer and that unmistakable one-shoulder Galvan creation. But eagle-eyed viewers weren't admiring her hosting prowess. They were screaming into the void because they'd seen that dress before, 2 years before to be exact, gracing the pages of Variety magazine when Meghan sat down for what was supposed to be a heartfelt tribute to Queen Elizabeth just weeks after Her Majesty's passing. The same satin, the same cut, the same everything. And that's when the accusations started flying faster than Meghan could delete negative comments. Social media erupted like a powder keg. Fashion watchers, royal commentators, and regular people who just enjoy a good scandal converged with one burning question. Did the Duchess of Montecito just wear a stolen dress to promote her vanity project? The timing couldn't have been worse for someone already drowning in negative press. Here was Meghan, attempting to launch her lifestyle empire with warm holiday vibes and aspirational hosting tips, only to reignite a firestorm about allegedly keeping designer garments that were never hers to begin with. The dress, valued at $1,695 by outlets tracking every thread on her back, became Exhibit A in what fashion insiders were whispering had been happening for years. But this wasn't just about one emerald gown. This was about a pattern, a history, a reputation that Meghan's team had desperately tried to bury. Journalist Vanessa Gregoriadis had already lit the fuse months earlier on a podcast appearance that sent shockwaves through media circles. She'd claimed that Meghan allegedly walked away from high-profile photo shoots with a lot of stuff, items that were supposed to be returned, borrowed pieces from top designers who loaned their creations expecting them back. For someone living in a $15 million Montecito mansion with $100 million streaming deals, the idea of taking home borrowed jewelry and designer wear seemed not just tacky, but utterly baffling. And now here was the proof glittering in high definition across Netflix's promotional materials. The dress had resurfaced, and with it every uncomfortable question about Meghan's relationship with other people's property. Her team knew they had to respond. The silence would be deafening, the speculation would spiral, and the comparisons to actual working royals who pay for every single item they wear would be brutal. So they issued a rare on-the-record statement, one that was supposed to shut down the chatter and threaten legal consequences for anyone daring to suggest impropriety. Instead, it became the match that burned down whatever remained of Meghan's crumbling public image. Because sometimes, the cover-up is so much worse than the crime. When Meghan's spokesperson finally broke their silence, the statement was supposed to be a knockout punch. Instead, it read like a confession wrapped in legal threats, and topped with the most absurd justification anyone in the fashion industry had ever heard. The insinuation that any items were taken without the full knowledge and agreement of the on-set stylists or their respective teams is not only categorically false, but also highly defamatory. The statement declared, any items kept were done so in total transparency and in accordance with contractual arrangements. Notice what's missing there? Any mention of actually paying for the dress, not a single word about opening her checkbook, writing a check, or compensating anyone for the $1,695 garment now immortalized in Netflix promotional materials. But the real fireworks came from the so-called source close to Meghan, who decided to explain why she kept the dress. Hold on to your hats, because this explanation is genuinely unhinged. According to this insider, Meghan took the dress to prevent it from being sold in an unauthorized auction because she had once worn it. They claimed it was standard practice for celebrities to keep select items to prevent this, describing the behavior as both commonplace and prudent. Let that sink in for a moment. Meghan Markle, living in her Montecito palace, allegedly believes that stylists and designers are sitting around plotting to sell her sweat-stained garments on the black market for premium prices. The fashion world responded with the collective eye roll heard around the globe. Tom Sykes at The Royalist checked with multiple fashion sources, photographers, stylists, and editors, and not a single person had ever heard this excuse before. One source put it bluntly, she seems to be implying the stylist would steal and hawk the piece for a premium on eBay, or is she implying the designer would? Another responded with a single word that perfectly captured the absurdity: insane. A stylist who has worked with the royal family told Sykes, it's pretty clear she just wanted the dress and kept it. The shade was nuclear. Even better, or worse depending on your perspective, Meghan's team suggested this had been an issue for members of the royal family in the past. Sykes, with 2 decades of royal reporting under his belt, couldn't count on 0 fingers the number of stories he'd written about royal clothing stained with regal sweat being illicitly resold online at bumper markups, because it doesn't happen. Working royals pay for their clothes from trusted designers and wear them repeatedly. Catherine has beloved pieces she's worn for over a decade. The idea that anyone's trying to auction off used royal garments is pure fantasy, the kind of delusion that only makes sense in Meghan's increasingly warped worldview. The excuses kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. Another source, clearly working overtime for damage control, told Page 6 that there was likely a misunderstanding. As a royal, she was required to archive all her looks. It was known that when things were pulled that they may not be returned. Sounds reasonable enough, right? except for one tiny, massive, absolutely critical problem. Meghan Markle was not a working royal when she did the variety shoot in 2022. She'd walked away from the monarchy over 2 years earlier, stripped of her HRH title, no longer representing the crown, no longer bound by palace protocols. The royal archive excuse doesn't just fall apart under scrutiny, it disintegrates into dust. When Meghan was actually a working royal, she spent money like water on designer clothes. Reports from 2018 showed she outspent every other royal on her wardrobe, racking up astronomical bills that had King Charles, then Prince of Wales, allegedly telling his youngest son that he couldn't afford to keep Meghan Markle in the style she clearly demanded. Those weren't free clothes. Those were purchased garments, paid for with royal funds, and yes, they went into the royal archive because that's what happens when you're representing the British monarchy. Every outfit, every appearance, every public engagement gets documented and preserved. But that system ended the moment Meghan and Harry signed their exit papers and fled to California. So why would Meghan still be operating under royal archive protocols 2 years after abandoning royal life? The answer is painfully obvious: she wouldn't be. This excuse is nothing more than smoke and mirrors, an attempt to weaponize her brief royal tenure to justify behavior that has nothing to do with palace protocols and everything to do with entitlement. Working royals like Catherine, Princess of Wales, purchase their clothing from trusted designers and are never permitted to accept free items or loans because it could imply endorsement or favoritism. That's the rule. That's the standard, and Meghan knew it because she reportedly hated it. Sources have long claimed that Meghan chafed against the restriction, viewing it as ridiculous that she couldn't keep all the designer freebies that come with celebrity status. She saw other actresses and influencers swimming in gifted Chanel and complimentary Dior, and she wanted that life. So the moment she was free from royal constraints, she allegedly went right back to her old habits, keeping borrowed items and calling it standard practice. The royal archive defense is insulting to anyone paying attention. It's an attempt to cloak greed and protocol, to dress up alleged sticky fingers in the legitimacy of crown tradition. And the fashion world isn't buying it for a second. The problem with Meghan's defense is that this isn't her first rodeo. Long before the variety dress drama, long before she was photographed in borrowed Chanel, there was the Reitmans incident that revealed exactly who Meghan Markle really is when cameras aren't rolling. Author Tom Bauer uncovered the whole sordid tale in his explosive 2022 book Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors, and the details are absolutely damning. Back in 2016, when Meghan was still grinding it out on Suits and desperate for any publicity she could get, she signed on to be the spokesperson for Reitmans, a Canadian department store she privately viewed as down market and beneath her growing celebrity status. The shoot was a disaster from start to finish. Meghan allegedly bulldozed her way through script changes, refused to make eye contact with crew members, and behaved so disagreeably that one crew member described her as super unpleasant, flipping from sweet with her hair and makeup team to nasty with everyone else within seconds. The third director on the commercial even posted on social media that she was definitely the meanest person he'd ever met. But the real kicker came at the end of the shoot, when wardrobe staff noticed something was missing. To their surprise, Meghan had forgotten to leave behind the Accusations shoes, expensive designer pumps that had been provided specifically for the campaign. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Fast forward to November 2017, and the world is introduced to Prince Harry's future bride in that iconic engagement announcement photo call. Meghan stood there in her white-lined the label coat and forest green dress, beaming at the cameras, and eagle-eyed fashion watchers immediately identified her footwear. They were the exact same Acquazzura Very Matilde crisscross suede pumps from the Reitman shoot. The same shoes that allegedly went missing. The same shoes that were never returned to the wardrobe department. Meghan didn't just keep them. She wore them to one of the most photographed moments of her entire life, as if daring anyone to connect the dots. The shoes promptly sold out after being identified, turning Meghan into an instant fashion influencer. But for those paying attention, it was a glaring red flag about her character. She'd allegedly taken borrowed property from a commercial shoot, and then flaunted it on the world stage. And according to Bauer, this wasn't an isolated incident. The pattern was already forming, the entitlement already baked in. Years before she'd blame royal archives or cite security concerns about unauthorized auctions, Meghan was simply taking what she wanted and walking away. The Reitman scandal is the smoking gun that proves this isn't a misunderstanding or a contractual mix-up, it's who she is. Fast forward to March 2024, and journalist Vanessa Grigoriadis dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves rippling through media circles. Appearing on Andrew Gold's Heretics podcast in an episode literally titled Exclusive Meghan Markle New Stealing Allegations, Grigoriadis, a contributing writer for the New York Times and Vanity Fair, revealed what people in the fashion industry had been whispering about for years. Meghan allegedly did not return a lot of stuff after wearing it in a very high-profile photo shoot. Not one item, not a couple of pieces, a lot of stuff. The language was deliberate. the implications staggering. Gregoria Dix explained how photo shoots work for anyone not familiar with the celebrity styling machine. Stylists bring options, sometimes 20 different pairs of shoes, 10 handbags, multiple dresses hung on portable racks, jewelry displayed on tables. Everything is cataloged, everything is tracked, and at the end of the shoot, everything gets packaged up and messengered back to the designers. That's the system. That's how it works for everyone from A-list movie stars to reality television personalities. Except apparently for Meghan Markle, who sources claim treated borrowed items like a personal shopping spree with a 5-finger discount. What shocked Gregoriadis most wasn't just the alleged behavior, it was the audacity of it all. Here's someone living in a $15 million mansion in Montecito, someone who'd signed $100 million deals with streaming platforms, someone who should be able to afford literally anything she wants. And yet, word on the street suggests she allegedly cared enough to take home jewelry and clothes from photo shoots that she could clearly purchase outright. The question isn't about ability, it's about mentality. It's about someone so accustomed to freebies and handouts that paying for things feels like a personal insult. But the evidence kept mounting. Remember that black and white tweed strapless Chanel midi dress Meghan wore during a date night with Prince Harry in New York City? Sharp-eyed fashion watchers recognized it immediately. She'd previously worn the exact same piece for a 2022 photo shoot for The Cut magazine. Another borrowed item, another reappearance in her personal wardrobe, another instance of Meghan allegedly keeping what was never meant to be kept. The pattern isn't subtle. It's blazing neon lights screaming, "Look at what I'm getting away with." Industry insiders told reporters they'd never encountered anything like it. Sure, sometimes items get misplaced during shoots. Sometimes there's genuine confusion about what was purchased versus what was loaned. But this alleged systematic retention of borrowed goods from multiple high-profile shoots, unprecedented. And now, with the variety dress plastered across Netflix promotional materials, Meghan had given the world undeniable proof that the whispers were true. The sticky fingers weren't rumors anymore, they were receipts. The alleged sticky fingers problem didn't just damage Meghan's reputation with stylists and magazines. It allegedly cost her one of the most valuable friendships she had in her early royal life. Victoria Beckham. The official story about why Meghan and Victoria's relationship imploded involves media leaks and accusations of betrayal, but sources with excellent knowledge of the situation paint a very different picture. According to insiders, the Victoria Beckham brand had a serious problem with the fact that Meghan seemingly felt everything was free, not discounted, not borrowed with intention to return. Free, as in Meghan allegedly expected to walk away with expensive designer pieces without ever opening her wallet. For someone like Victoria Beckham, who built her fashion empire from the ground up with meticulous attention to business practices and brand integrity, this would be absolutely unacceptable. Victoria knows the value of her designs down to every stitch and seam. She's not running a charity for ex-actresses who married into royalty. When Victoria dresses someone, it's a carefully calculated business decision involving brand alignment, publicity value, and yes, financial compensation when appropriate. The idea that Meghan allegedly treated the Victoria Beckham brand like her personal closet would be grounds for immediate friendship termination in anyone's book. The whispers suggest Meghan wore Victoria's designs during her royal tenure, pieces that were either loaned for specific events or provided with the expectation of purchase, and things got murky about what was returned, what was paid for, and what simply disappeared into Meghan's Frogmore Cottage wardrobe. For Victoria, who values loyalty and proper business conduct above almost everything, this alleged behavior would be the ultimate betrayal. It's one thing to have a friendship. It's another thing entirely when that friendship is being exploited for free designer goods worth thousands upon thousands of dollars. And now, in the aftermath of this dress scandal, fashion brands are reportedly taking extreme precautions when dealing with Meghan Markle. Industry sources reveal that designers are now very stipulative about what they're willing to provide, demanding detailed contracts with explicit return dates and checking off every single item unless they openly write a letter stating something was gifted. The informal trust that exists between celebrities and fashion houses has evaporated where Meghan is concerned. Nobody wants to be the next designer whose creation ends up on her back without proper compensation or credit. What's fascinating is how this has damaged Meghan's attempts to position herself as a fashion influencer and tastemaker. She wanted to be the American version of Catherine, someone whose fashion choices send brands into stratospheric success. But when designers are scared to work with you, when they're requiring contracts that treat you like a potential liability rather than a valued collaborator, your influence isn't aspirational anymore. It's toxic. The Victoria Beckham fallout is just the beginning of fashion doors slamming shut all across the industry. If Meghan thought her dress scandal couldn't get any worse, Netflix decided to prove her spectacularly wrong. The streaming giant that handed the Sussexes that legendary $100 million deal has essentially thrown with Love Meghan under the bus before it even premieres. The holiday special was supposed to drop before Thanksgiving, giving Meghan maximum exposure during the peak holiday season, when people are actually interested in cooking tips and entertaining advice. Instead, Netflix delayed it to January 2nd, 2025, dumping it in that post-holiday wasteland when everyone's broke, bloated, and sick of festive content. That's not a release strategy, that's a burial. But the real slap in the face came just days ago when Netflix announced their programming priorities. 24 hours before With Love Meghan finally limps onto screens, they're releasing The Reckoning, the massive Sean Diddy Combs documentary produced by 50 Cent. This is a cultural earthquake, a deep dive into one of the biggest celebrity scandals in decades, and Netflix is positioning it to completely overshadow Meghan's little lifestyle show. The message is crystal clear. We have actual important content, and then we have whatever Meghan's doing. Industry expert Biddy 50 Cent Cray of Truth put it perfectly. The world will be focused on this documentary, which is why Meghan's holiday show is going to flop. Netflix's lack of enthusiasm for Meghan's project has been obvious for months. Remember when they announced that American Riviera Orchard products wouldn't be available in Netflix's online stores? That was a devastating blow for someone trying to launch a lifestyle brand. The whole point of the show was supposed to be driving traffic to her jam and dog biscuit empire, creating that seamless influencer-to-consumer pipeline. But Netflix basically said no thanks. We're not using our platform to sell your overpriced preserves. That decision alone should have told Meghan everything she needed to know about how Netflix views her commercial viability. The streaming service has clearly learned their lesson from the Spotify debacle. Remember when Spotify executives reportedly called Meghan and Harry grifters after their podcast deal collapsed in spectacular failure? Netflix watched that train wreck and decided they're not throwing good money after bad. The evidence suggests they fulfilled their contractual obligation by filming With Love Meghan, but they're not promoting it, not featuring it prominently, not clearing their schedule to give it breathing room. They're essentially letting it die quietly while they focus on content that actually generates buzz and subscriber growth. For Meghan, this is humiliation on a global scale. She thought she was going to be Netflix's golden girl, their answer to Gwyneth Paltrow and Martha Stewart combined. Instead, she's the talent they're contractually obligated to air but would rather bury beneath actual prestige programming. And now, with the dress scandal exploding just days before her premiere, Netflix executives are probably breathing a sigh of relief that they never went all in on the Meghan Markle experiment. Just when you thought Meghan's week couldn't get more catastrophic, she decided to post a Thanksgiving turkey video that had the entire internet screaming in horror. Not horror at something scary, but horror at what she was trying to pass off as turkey preparation. The video shows Meghan rubbing seasoning on what's supposed to be a festive bird, cheerfully announcing "let the game begin," except nobody understood what game she was referencing. More importantly, nobody could understand why she was treating that poor turkey like it had personally offended her. Food bloggers, home cooks, and professional chefs converged with one unanimous verdict: that turkey is going to be drier than the Sahara Desert. The problems were immediately apparent to anyone who's ever cooked a turkey, or even watched someone else do it competently. No olive oil, no butter, no proper brine anywhere in sight. The seasoning she was rubbing on looked sparse and sad, nowhere near enough salt or herbs to create actual flavor. One commenter, Princess Carpakle, absolutely eviscerated the attempt. That's about to be the dirtiest turkey ever made. No butter between the skin and meat, nowhere near enough salt, and you need to season the inside as well. Just admit you can't cook, girl. The shade was absolutely nuclear and completely justified. But here's what really sent people into orbit. Meghan kept all her jewelry on while handling raw poultry. Her wedding ring, her bracelets, everything still glittering on her hands as she rubbed that unseasoned turkey. Anyone who knows basic food safety understands you take jewelry off before handling raw meat because bacteria gets trapped in every crevice, and those pieces become contamination hazards. Stephanie Sidley asked the question everyone was thinking: why is she wearing her jewelry? It's not just unhygienic, it's genuinely disgusting. And then Meghan grabbed the salt and pepper shakers without washing her hands, spreading raw turkey germs across everything she touched. The most delicious part of this disaster? Last year, Meghan allegedly admitted on the Drew Barrymore show that she didn't actually cook Thanksgiving dinner. She ordered it out. That segment mysteriously disappeared from the internet within 24 hours, scrubbed by Paramount like it never existed. But people remember, and now they're wondering if this year's turkey is even real. Some viewers are speculating it's a fake prop turkey, the kind used on movie sets, because nobody in their right mind would handle an actual raw bird while wearing thousands of dollars in jewelry. The theory actually makes sense given that Meghan's entire life is a performance staged for maximum Instagram aesthetic. What this turkey debacle really reveals is Meghan's fundamental incompetence at the very thing she's trying to sell. She wants to be a lifestyle guru, a domestic goddess teaching the masses how to entertain with elegance. But she can't even prepare a basic Thanksgiving turkey without the internet roasting her harder than that poor bird will ever get roasted. Right on cue, as the dress scandal reached fever pitch and the turkey disaster went viral, Meghan and Harry staged their most transparent publicity stunt yet. They showed up at Our Big Kitchen in Los Angeles for a carefully orchestrated charity appearance, complete with their children Archie and Lilibet in tow, because nothing says genuine philanthropy like dragging your kids to a photo opportunity during a PR crisis. The images that emerged told the whole story. Harry clutching Meghan like his life depended on it, excessive PDA that screamed we're totally fine and definitely not fighting, and those painfully obvious Archwell-branded aprons that the entire staff was forced to wear. Let's talk about those aprons for a second, because they perfectly encapsulate everything wrong with Meghan's approach to charity. When you volunteer at an organization, you wear their branding, you promote their mission, you make it about them, not about yourself. But Meghan couldn't resist slapping Archwell logos on everyone, turning a charity event into a branding exercise for her own foundation. The volunteers weren't there representing Our Big Kitchen and the work they do feeding communities. They were walking advertisements for brand Sussex, and that's grotesque. Real philanthropists understand the difference between service and self-promotion. Meghan clearly doesn't. The body language in those photos is absolutely screaming dysfunction. Every time cameras catch Meghan and Harry together lately, the PDA gets more aggressive and desperate. He's grabbing her, she's clutching him, they're practically merged into one person, and it all reads as performative desperation rather than genuine affection. When couples are actually secure and happy, they don't need to prove it with constant physical displays, they just exist comfortably together. This clinging, this aggressive togetherness, this look at how in love we are energy suggests the exact opposite of what they're trying to sell. And let's address the elephant in the room. How many staff members were required to make this charity appearance happen? How many nannies were on standby to wrangle the children? How many Archwell employees were pressured to show up and smile for the cameras or risk losing their jobs? This wasn't spontaneous community service. This was a meticulously planned photo operation designed to distract from the avalanche of negative press. Sources suggest these employees essentially had no choice but to participate in this performative togetherness, forced to wear those Archwell aprons and act like they're part of one big happy family serving the community. The timing is also suspiciously convenient. Dress scandal exploding? Turkey video bombing? Netflix clearly not supporting your show? Better roll out the charity appearance with kids and forced family cohesion. It's the Sussex playbook. When things get bad, stage something that makes you look philanthropic and loving. But people aren't buying it anymore. The performance has become too obvious, the desperation too palpable. Every staged appearance just reinforces what everyone already knows. The image Meghan wants to project has absolutely nothing to do with reality. This fall has been nothing short of an epic implosion for Meghan Markle. 2 solid months of relentlessly negative headlines, each one more damaging than the last, and absolutely 0 wins to balance the scales. The dress scandal is just the latest catastrophe in what's become a masterclass in how to destroy your own brand through sheer incompetence and alleged entitlement. Every single attempt Meghan makes to rehabilitate her image backfires spectacularly, creating new controversies that overshadow whatever positive spin she was trying to create. It's genuinely impressive how consistently she manages to make things worse. The American Riviera Orchard brand that was supposed to be her triumphant return to relevance, limping along with what her team desperately describes as an inevitable seasonal uptick, which is PR speak for we're barely surviving and have no actual numbers to share. When spokespeople start using vague language about things going really well and finding their stride, it means the opposite. If the business was thriving, they'd be screaming specific sales figures from the rooftops. Instead, we get tepid assurances that early problems have been ironed out, which just confirms those problems existed in the first place because they rushed the launch without proper planning. What's so fascinating about Meghan's downfall is the fundamental disconnect between who she thinks she is and who she actually is. She sees herself as this sophisticated philanthropist and business mogul, a modern woman building an empire through authenticity and hard work. The rest of the world sees someone allegedly taking borrowed dresses, serving unseasoned turkey while wearing jewelry, and staging charity appearances to distract from scandals. That gap between fantasy and reality has become a chasm so wide that no amount of PR spin can bridge it. Every statement her team releases, every excuse they offer, just highlights how delusional the whole operation has become. And now with Love, Meghan is about to land in that post-holiday wasteland, with the dress scandal as its lasting legacy. Nobody's going to remember her hosting tips or her friendship bracelets or whatever lifestyle wisdom she's trying to peddle. They're going to remember the allegedly stolen dress she wore in the trailer, the absurd excuses about preventing unauthorized auctions, and the desperate legal threats that only made everything worse. Netflix knows it, which is why they're burying the special behind actual prestige content. The industry knows it, which is why designers are demanding ironclad contracts, and deep down, Meghan probably knows it too. The tragedy, if you can call it that, is how preventable all of this was. A simple statement saying, "I love the dress, so I purchased it," would have ended the controversy before it started. But Meghan can't help herself. She can't admit fault, can't take responsibility, can't just pay for things like everyone else. And that's why her American royalty fantasy is crumbling into dust, one scandal at a time, with no end in sight.